it's all about letting your body go and your mind go and allow the movement to happen in your body. And at one point, I swear that the woman who was doing the session, I felt she was pressing down on my stomach and then another time on my hands. And both times I sneaked a peek underneath my mask and there was no one.
I feel like in hypnosis, if you go in with a closed mind, you're not going to get the result you want. I've had 3, I think, attempts at Reiki. And every time in my head, I'm telling myself I'm open-minded, but all 3 times I've had absolutely no impact. And I found it more frustrating than helpful because you sat there going, come on, this isn't working. And I can't get out that headspace. That doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means I'm probably the wrong client for it. Harry, how you doing, buddy? I'm sat in a sweatbox joining you. Apologies. You can probably, I've been here for like 9 hours in this room and it's like the hottest day of the year and it's steaming. How you been? How you doing?
I've been sweating as well. I'm down in Brighton. I got to Brighton on Monday with my best mate and he lives in Austin. Actually, I told you about him. He lives in Austin.
You have. Yeah.
So he came over for like 7 weeks over the summer, but I haven't seen him much. And he's got his 2 young kids and then his wife surprised everyone and came on Sunday, and I convinced them to come down to Brighton. So we drove down to Brighton together Monday, hung out with my sister, and all my nieces are here because well, not all of them, but most of them, because they're doing like some sort of water sports activity for the week. So my younger sister's got 4 kids there looking after them, and so we all hung out. And we were at the beach yesterday, and it's just like being on holiday. And went for a nice cycle today. Had a couple of shandies, which are gluten-free beer and a bit of lemonade. And so about an hour ago, I was ready for a snooze, and then I was like, got on the bike and came down and ready to rock it for a bit before heading out. But it's very hot here as well, and there's no breeze coming through. So
my gluten journey hasn't been as consistent as I'd like it to be. I'll be honest. I tell you why, because I've tried gluten-free pasta and it's terrible. And it's like my favourite meal in the world.
What gluten-free pasta was that? Like, is it like a lentil or a pea pasta, or is it a gluten-free commercial?
Gluten-free commercially one. It was awful. It just falls apart and crumbles. And it's been my favourite meal. So I'm relented. I'm still gluten-free on the brand. Don't have any bread and stuff like that, but I have relented a little bit. And I feel like I'm doing it with awareness. It's worth the trade-off. I'd rather have good pasta food. And I make my own pasta as well. I've also made my own pasta with gluten-free flour. It's just not the same. So I've relented on that side. Otherwise, well.
Oh, it really depends, because I really like the lentil pasta. You can get lentil pasta, like red lentil pasta. That's really good. Yeah. You'll get it in specialty stores. You won't get it in regular supermarkets, though.
Okay.
So that's it.
Okay. I don't get many of those in Excellent, but maybe online. So last time we spoke, you were in Estonia. You're having at a big event. Tell me about how it went. Yeah. No, I'm not going to say the word this time. I gave you enough ribbing last time.
And it wasn't any of that. So I'll tell you what was interesting. So I was for those listening a bit new, I was at a thing called Mindvalley University. It's like a personal development / business conference. It's open to adults and children. Been going for about 7 years. The idea being a different country every year, although the last 3 years have been the same place. Next year will be Amsterdam. And you go to lectures, you learn from thought leaders across the world, whether it's on meditation, whether it's on AI, whether that's on hypnosis, whether it's like, there's just so many different random things. And I actually went just for the last week this year. It runs for 3 weeks, and I got a ticket late in the day. So I actually started going to lectures the last maybe 2 or 3 days. It was really good. I didn't do many lectures. I think when we spoke, it was the Wednesday. And so I'd gone to that one about intimate touch. Did we talk about that? I think we talked about that.
You did. Yeah, you did. Yeah. That's what I was
ribbing you about, being a sex fest. Yeah. Well, what was interesting actually is I then went and practiced that stuff with some other people later in the week, which was quite good. And it was really, I tell you what, I did have a transformative time because it was different from last year for sure. But my big thing is I think a lot, right? And I'm trying to get a little bit out of my head and more into my body. Thursday night was a good catalyst. So Thursday night, I already said when I met you last time that I'd done a cacao ceremony on the Tuesday. I think we briefly talked about it.
Yeah.
There was another cacao ceremony on the Thursday, and then an ecstatic dance. So I'm not sure how familiar you are with what ecstatic dance is, but it's effectively sober dancing, let's call it, right? So they hired this yoga studio. We did a cacao ceremony for the first sort of half hour, an hour. Then there was a guy teaching voice activation. So we were like practicing with our voice and getting a little bit more vocal. And then that kind of built into movement. And then there was a DJ playing, and then we ended up dancing for 3.5 hours. I was going crazy. Like, just, it felt like you were high or on drugs or something like that, but you're totally sober, just drinking water. And it was amazing. And then from there, that finished about 11:30. I thought, oh, I'm going to just crash the VIP party. I didn't have a ticket, but the VIP party was ending at like 1 a.m. anyway. So by the time I got there, it was like 12:15. And I went in there, danced my ass off, like, again, totally sober, didn't drink anything because I had too much the first weekend I was there, and I didn't want to drink that second week. And I had the best night. And for me, I've really got into that body because it was like not thinking about what other people think of you, not thinking about the moves I have to make, just allowing the body to feel what it needed to feel. And that, I mean, I'll let you chat in a second, but that then led on to 2 other sessions, which I'll talk about in a second, which were pretty interesting as well. So that was good. And then, yeah, it was just like partying and fun, but I was mainly partying sober. I had a couple of drinks on the final party, but the Friday night I went out and didn't drink anything, and just partied and danced.
Mate,
And
partying and sober is in vogue, right? That's
That's
my
great.
my
I love
daughter
it.
and the others. She's not, they're not into it anymore. It's something we used to do. It seems to be fading out slowly, and people just aren't interested as much as they used to be. It's
Yeah,
a
because you can just
generational
do
thing.
so much more. And I was ill as well at the beginning of the week. I think I might have mentioned it, and it kind of took it out of me. And my Oura ring stats, went into that kind of crazy limited resilience stage, which I know because it's the lack of sleep, the poor food, the different bed, the light, all of that sort of stuff. Not following my beat model, and that just threw me massively off. And I'm only just kind of clawing my way back now.
Well, you used the word transformation. I thought was interesting because I
Yeah,
don't know if you agree, but in my learnings, if you like, through my coaching journey, I've always been taught there are 4 stages to transformation. You've got separation, which is leaving your familiar world behind. Maybe the world you're used to being in your head, you're trying to get more into your body. And that obviously is always going to require commitment. Similar to if you're trying to give up alcohol, right? If you're going to go to a party and not drink, there's separation from what we're familiar with. In that instance, that would be something that I'd be going through. Then there's kind of the initiation phase, which always requires courage because you've got to go through the door of adventure, right? You've got to go into the point and go, I'm up for this. I'm going to commit to it. It's like a commitment phase. And then when you've done both those things, you can start to experience a transformation, which is, you've changed, but there's the realization that the world hasn't. So I might go to a
yeah,
party, not give out, not drink, have a great time, but realize everyone around me hasn't necessarily been on my journey. But it does, at that point, is when you start to see the world differently, right? So I'd be interested to know how you start to see it differently when you were in your body rather than in your head, especially knowing that everyone else around you probably still sees it the same, or maybe they don't because you're in a community of like-minded people there. So it's a slightly different situation.
it's a very different. It's a weird bubble. It's like Disneyland for adults, and it's not the real world when you go to Mindvalley University a lot of the time. But it it did get me not thinking as much when I got back. So I took a couple of action steps last few days, which I would have overthought previously. But I think what was transformational as well was what happened on the Sunday. So the ecstatic dance was on the Thursday. Then on the Friday, I went to what's called a Kundalini activation process session. So Kundalini is like an energy, right? There's a practice of yoga called Kundalini yoga, and it's very static, but it's all about bringing up the energy within. It's like a life force through the chakras, all of this stuff, which maybe doesn't mean much to listeners. And honestly, I've done a Kundalini activation process 2 years ago in Mexico, and they do a demonstration with someone, and there's a woman, and it's like almost like Reiki, where you're like waving your hands over people, and you're like, okay, what's all this kind of BS, and then the woman that they demonstrate with, she was like convulsing and moving her body and writhing, and it was almost like she was having sex, right? Like an orgasmic, right? And when I did this in Mexico, I lay there. I paid like $50 as well for this experience. I just lay there, nothing, right? Nothing, right? Nada. Second time I did it was last week on that Friday. And again, the demo person that she used to demo actually didn't really move, didn't do anything. Like, she did a demo and there was like nothing, right? And nothing there. But during the session, some people were really getting into it because you're there with your eye mask on, so you don't really see other people. You're there lying down on the yoga mat. And I heard the one woman, she was really going through it. It was like, you know, when Harry met Sally, that scene, you
Yeah,
know, with
yeah,
the,
okay.
it was like that, but 10 times that. I personally, that time, did have an experience. It's all about letting your body go and your mind go and allow the movement to happen in your body. And at one point, I swear that the woman who was doing the session, there was about 30 of us there, and one woman doing the energy work, I felt she was pressing down on my stomach and then another time on my hands. And both times I sneaked a peek underneath my mask and there was no one there, right? But it felt like a presser. And I also felt like, you know, like connection with my dad and presence in that way. And
Sure.
actually at the ecstatic dance, I really felt there was a release of something like
Good.
emotionally about my dad. It was partly the cacao, but also the dancing, the embodiment of the music, and a couple of the songs that really triggered me. And I got quite emotional, and there was a kind of a release. And
Release.
then at the Kundalini, I felt a connection, but then not much else, right? Just that pressure. Then on the Sunday, I decided to go and do it again. And bear in mind, on the Sunday, I'd been up since till 7 a.m. partying at the party and after party. Woke up around 12 or 2, went straight to this Kundalini thing, and she did it again, and this time the demo was going all crazy, and I was like, okay, I've really just come here to lie down because it was a free session anyway. I was like, or donation based session. I thought I want a little sleep, and you relax, and she puts really nice music on. About 10 minutes into the session, I'm lying there, and I feel like this wave of something coming through me, and this energy, and my body starts moving, and it's almost like an exorcism where like the body was like kind of going up and it was and then the woman wasn't anywhere near me because at one point I felt her come back and she was like guiding the energy and guiding my hands. It was like I was basically possessed or something with this force that was coming through me, and it was crazy. And then that went for about 15 minutes or just like that, and then it was and bliss for the next 30 minutes or something like that. And it's not like, I think you just get out of your own way. You know, I try to describe it to people like, you know, sometimes when you're falling asleep and
A
and
jolt.
then you get a little jolt in your
Yeah, you
body,
get a little
you know that?
nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was kind of like that. You get so relaxed, your mind is out of the way. And then my body just felt like, you know, whatever, moving the arm. It was like, oh, and I was not in the way. I wasn't
Yeah.
filtering the movement that the body wanted to do. Rather than
You've,
there was
you've
a,
given a you've given a good account of that experience because the first thing that came to my mind, which is annoying, frustrating for me because it's not how I want to think, but we're not perfect, right? So when you start talking a bit about your experience, I was thinking in my head at the start, you talking about the woman who was, you know, convulsing and making noise and all this stuff. I was thinking, well, you're having an authentic experience, and the other person's having an inauthentic experience. And in those kind of places, anyway, you do get a lot of peacocks, shall we say? A lot of people that want to be seen and want to be showing that this really impacting them. And I appreciate this is the skeptic coming out of me, which is a really bad trait, probably, but that's what I was thinking when you were talking. I was like, well, it's really good. I'm really glad you had that authentic experience, but it's frustrating because these can be really, really good sessions for people. But I think that sometimes it's the inauthentic experiences that give people the incorrect perception of what these sessions are really about. People think that they make people think like it's all a lot of rubbish because you've got these people that just go so OTT. But actually, you've taken us on a bit of a journey that maybe that wasn't the case, maybe because
yeah,
it takes several sessions to really let yourself go.
yeah,
I want to go
yeah.
back as well to the listeners on the transformation piece, just because it's something that's useful to know, and maybe people going through transformation. So the 4 stages, because we got to 3. The first one's separation, obviously doing something different. The second one's initiation, the courage to go through that door. The third one is the transformation and the realization, and it's really important, this part, that when you go through transformation, you've changed, but you will realize the world hasn't. And that's a really important thing to be aware of if you're going through a journey. So you might be, maybe it's a fitness transformation, maybe it's a health transformation, maybe it's a mindfulness transformation. Be aware that if unless someone's on that journey with you, you might see the world differently at the end of it, but they might not. So just be prepared for that. But what's really interesting is the 4th stage, which you've got to as a vitality expert, which is transmission, where you actually start helping others on that journey to become masterful in their new vision. And that's obviously what we're trying to do a little bit on this show, right? We're trying to help people because we've come a certain way in our own journeys, and we now feel like we're in a position where we want to try and help others and guide them and learn from what we've done and learn from your experiences. And I was learning then just listening to you because I had that skeptical view of
Mm.
there's someone in the room who just wants to take all the attention for them, I mask or not. But actually, maybe it was authentic after all. I don't know.
I think, yeah, that's the thing. And I think like a lot of these things I go to and I'm like, I've done loads of things, right? I've done the plant medicines, I've done the meditation retreats, I've done the yoga, and very rarely am I getting the experiences where it's been like transformational
Supported
in the
to hear,
moment.
yeah.
And I'm like, is this all, because I like, say for example with Reiki, right? Like, which is the energy healing. And you can do a weekend course and become a Reiki master, level 2, and I'm always like, yeah, really?
I've had two
And
Reiki treatments. I'll be honest, for me, it did absolutely sweet FA. But I am
yeah,
biased in my opinions because I'm married to a sports massage therapist, which is all about physical touch. Now, because I
mm,
have that bias, not to say that I've never even asked her opinion on Reiki, but when you have that on, I mean, I've had a massage today because I did a 20-mile run this morning and I've had a sports massage to recover. When you go from having that on tap to a certain degree to suddenly going through a Reiki experience, for me, I was just like, what the hell's going on? Like, this is doing absolutely nothing for me. I need you to work. I need to get it. So I went in with it's a bit like hypnosis. If you go in with a closed mind, you're not going to get the result you want. I've had
mm,
three, I think, attempts at Reiki. And every time in my head, I'm telling myself I'm open minded. But all
yeah.
three times I've had absolutely no impact. And I found it more frustrating than helpful because you sat there going, come on, this isn't working. And I can't get out that headspace. That doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means I'm probably the wrong client for it.
The wrong client at the wrong time. I mean, this is the thing. You mentioned hypnosis, and I actually do want to talk about that as well because I did a group hypnosis session as well. So on the Monday, so the Mindvalley finished on the Saturday night with the party, but a lot of people stayed a few extra days. I stayed like 4 extra days, and I prefer that because you actually get to meet people in a less intensive way because you don't have to rush to do loads of things. And so I actually met loads of cool people on the last like 3 or 4 days after Mindvalley. And one of the people is a hypnotherapist, and so she hosted a group hypnotherapy session at her flat in on the Monday, and it was all about intuition, following your intuition. So it was quite cool. What was actually really interesting, a couple of things with that particular person is one, I met her on the night of the first cacao. She came up to me and she said, "Oh, are you Harry?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she goes, "Oh, last year I bought a ticket off your friend, and they said to give you a hug or something." And I was like, "What friend would have mentioned me?" And I was like, "Oh, is it Cynthia, right? The girl I stayed with in Las Vegas last year when we were doing the podcast." And so she had bought my friend's ticket last year and gave me a hug a year later in the end. But anyway, so she was running this hypnosis session and she was staying in my best mate from Mindvalley's flat that he had last year. So he had this amazing flat overlooking the beach and she was actually staying there. I was like, oh my God, I feel like at home. So as soon as I walked in there, I was like, this is like, I spent so much time there last year. So we did a session there and we actually became quite good friends because she was staying in the same apartment block as me. So we would go for a swim the following 2 mornings. And on the Wednesday, I was actually thinking about you when I was thinking about this situation, because you're very much a man of action, right? Like ready, was it ready, fire, aim, right? You're kind of a ready, fire, aim, or fire, then ready, aim kind of person. Even with this podcast, right? You were like, let's just do it. Doesn't matter about the title. Doesn't matter what. Let's just make it work. Whereas I would have overthought it to the point where I'm not doing it. So on the Wednesday, I was leaving, getting a flight back, and the girl, hypnotherapist girl, and her flatmate were talking about how they had this amazing apartment. They tried to organise a party way back when, in the beginning of Mindvalley, it didn't happen, or they overthought it, or they didn't invite enough people. And as they were discussing this, I was just like, I was getting on the group chat, which has got like 1,000 people in it, WhatsApp. Like not all of them at Mindvalley, but a lot of them. And I was just like, right, it's going to be a party between 4:30 and 7:30 at this place. And they're like, what? Yeah. And I just took charge. It was their apartment. They're like, oh, that's great of you, organising a party at our apartment. I was like, look, don't worry about it. You don't have to bring anything. We'll just tell people to bring watermelon. We've got vodka. I'll take my blender. And we made like watermelon vodka. They actually ended up going to the supermarket and buying a bunch of things and making it all nice and pretty. I was like, you didn't need to do any of that. People would just bring stuff. They ended up having this party. I had to go at 7:30 because I had the flight, but apparently it went on till like 2:30, 3:30 in the morning. Couldn't get rid of people, and they had a great time. and they were really happy that I pushed them to do it because they were leaving the next day anyway, and they finally had a party at this amazing apartment with sea views and everything. But it was very much like, don't think, just do. Right, just do. Just don't overthink it. Just do. Right, whoever turns up, right. You don't need 50 people there. We had about 20 people in the end. It was great, but I was thinking, like, I'm not sure I would have overthought it in the past. And actually, I've decided to go away this weekend to Slovakia and hang out with a couple of people from Mindvalley. And I just don't want to think. I don't want to overthink things, and I just want to.
There you go. This is just for you, Harry. I've found a little feature. Here we go. Ready? It's gonna work. May not. Live. I don't know. I've got a little thing. There you go. Just for you. There you go. Just found a little sound effect to the right hand. I've never noticed it before, so I thought I'll give you a little clap for that. Well, actually, the aim, whatever it was, thing you just mentioned.
Maybe fire aim.
That's where I've been since we last met. So I think I told you I've got Ironman Copenhagen coming up, and I am so undertrained for it. It's insane. I shouldn't really be doing the race. First thing I did is I went onto Google, went, right, find me a training program from, get Ironman ready in 4 weeks. It doesn't exist. Like, they're all 6 months plus or whatever. So I decided to write my own program. Like I've sent you some data. So this week I've done 3 100-mile rides in the last 8 days. I did a 20-mile run this morning, and I'm getting up at silly o'clock to get it done before I go to work, which is when you're trying to fit a 5-6 hour ride, it's tricky. I've merely been starting work a bit late. We've got flexi time. So I've been able to get to work at between 10:30 and 11, but I'm out on the bike up at 4, and I'm out and I'm cycling all over and whatever. And I sent you the stuff, because that's me. It's like no plan. If I think about what I've got to do, I'm never going to get up at time. And I just have to set the alarm and not think about it. Get on the bike, not think about it. Just make sure things are turning, and I'll end up where I end up. Otherwise, it's just too much to compute. But I've got to a point now where I think I'm in the risk of overtraining. As I showed you the data, my body battery is 5 out of 100 on my app. And I was like, okay, that's pretty low. And then my sleep, it tells me I'm like 72 days underslept or something ridiculous if you cumulatively.
How long away is this thing?
It's on the 18th of August. But I'm going away on holiday to La Gomera in 2 days, which I haven't packed for.
Yeah, but that's probably a good thing. I mean, because I was going to say, I think you do no training whatsoever the week before, for a whole week before. That would be what I would say.
I've already rented the bike. I don't think my wife's overly happy. I'm losing a day of the holiday. I've rented the bike in La Gomera. It's a 45, which actually for her, it's, as she pointed out, I said, it's 45 minutes away. Can you drive me? She's like, well, hold on. That's 3 hours out of my day. I couldn't work out the map. I think I'm just tired. But she's like, it's an hour and a half each way, and I've got to pick you up at the end. But I've hired a rubbishy road bike out there. I'm going to go and tackle the hills. It's like 4,000 meters of climbing, 150K, 8 hours in a saddle. So even on the holiday, I've got to keep doing. Otherwise, I'm just going to completely like bonk and fail at the race, and the whole thing would be a wasted investment and a waste of time.
Yeah, but you also could like say, if your body's overtrained going into it, that's why I say your best. When you do a marathon, you're supposed to take off that.
Yeah, I'll take it the week I get back. I think will be a week rest. But what's been really interesting, because you were saying, well, I'll say interesting for me, and where I wanted to get to is you were talking about how you gave you the opportunity to go away and embrace thoughts about your dad and everything else. For me, this has been the perfect distraction, because when all I can think about every day is, oh my God, I've got this to do, 6 hours in the bike, whatever. And I've been quite well distracted. Whether that's good, bad, or indifferent when you're dealing with grief, I don't know. But it's been helpful. Like, it's been the least emotional I've been since losing him probably the last 10 days. I've been so focused on just getting out, getting the runs done, getting the cycling done, getting the swimming done. And that's been I think that's quite positive. I think. I mean, that's all going to come later, but I'm feeling.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I still feel like I'm in that shock stage, but I feel like with some of the spiritual development over the last 2 weeks and body embodiment, I guess if you can call it that, I feel there's a different energy there, but it's still very strange. And obviously my mum's now moved into the house, and I got back with that, and I'm trying to navigate half living with her. I mean, obviously here I'm in Brighton at the moment for literally only for 2 days, but then I'm not going to be back here for a while, because I think I've got it Airbnb'd most of August and September, so I probably won't almost be back till October now. So I'm not quite sure how I'm going to navigate being in London. I think that's why I want to go away for a fair bit of August and September if I can.
My dad never really liked me doing the full Ironman events. He was always worried about my safety, my heart, all that kind of stuff. He lost his brother to a heart defect, so there is some context to that.
Right.
But he always they say the vision drives decision, right? So for me, it's like I've got that vision of if I'm going to do it, I've got to make sure I'm fit enough, healthy enough, and also I don't want to be collapsing and cramping and walking around the last part of the marathon after a long bike ride. So he's still
Mm.
driving me to get up and do it, and I also don't want him losing him to be the reason I don't do it, because that's the last thing he'd have wanted either. So although I'm not thinking about him in terms of the emotion as much as I was, it's been a good distraction, he's still actually behind the scenes driving the decision to go and do it and to make sure I do it safely and do it healthily.
Yeah.
And also he'd be gutted, I think, if I didn't do an event because of his passing had impacted my training so much that I wasn't doing something that he knew I wanted to do. So yeah. What's
Actually,
going
I
on?
wanted to circle back a little bit to the transformational stuff you were talking about and those phases, because it reminded me of a blog post I wrote many years ago. I can't even remember when it was. 2015, so 9 years ago, and I called it the 3 phases to accept about transformational change. So it's slightly different from what you had there. But the first, and I think this is a play on something else I learned from someone else. But the first phase, and they all begin with R, is ridicule. So like, your well-meaning friend, like when you make a change, right, especially like when it's personal development or health or whatever, your friends might ridicule you. They might say, like, really, I don't think that's going to work out. You starting your own business, doing this, that, the other. Then there's going to be resistance. So the second R is resistance. So then they're trying to kind of stop you from doing. They see that you're actually making progress. They see that you're actually going for it, and they're going to resist the thing. And then the third R is reality. Then after a while, it becomes a self-evident reality, and almost people are like, oh well, Nick's always been like this, or Nick's always been like that, or he's that kind of person, and it becomes a reality. And I thought about this with loads of things, right? For example, and I don't want to go down the whole COVID rabbit hole, but let's say there's the ridicule, right, of wearing masks, all right, that's silly, whatever. Then there was the resistance, and then eventually, like for a lot portion of the population, it became reality, right? Just wearing a mask on public transport or whatever it is. And I feel like that is the same with all transformational. Is that ridicule, resistance, then reality that happens. And I think it's interesting because I've had my friend staying over at the moment, and I was talking about you actually to him today, because I was saying how we had our conversation back in that pub for like 5 hours, which birthed the whole idea for the podcast, and how maybe 10, 15 years ago when we first met, I was trying to have sort of similar type conversations, but it wasn't kind of landing. And then around 2018, you started to get into the coaching and the books and all that. And his wife is, they live in America. So now they've become a little bit more health conscious because everything is trying to kill you out there. And so they're like reading similar books, or certainly she is, listening to similar podcasts. And even today I said something to her boys, right? So I said a phrase. I said, like, in life, if you do what is easy, your life will be hard. But if you do what is hard, your life will be easy. And she was like, we should have been listening to you for the last 10 years and all these things. And but I always say, and actually my sister as well, she was telling my friend's wife the other day. We were all out having a chat, and she was saying how she was reading some book, and it was telling her about, I don't know, the toxins in this, or how gluten affects you this way. And I'm like, I've been trying to say these things for ages. And then I always say the same phrases, which you can't be a prophet in your own land, right? Your friends and your family who have known you in a certain way are never going to often see you in a different way. They're not going to take advice from
you can only change when you're ready for it. So when we spoke first time, I wouldn't say I was the personality that would have ridiculed you for it. I think we got on because I was fascinated by it. It just wasn't for me in that moment, for whatever reason. I'm sure I've given you excuses or reasons as to why it wasn't ready for me in that moment. But I think you've got to be ready for change. What I think is really interesting is from the 3 R's you gave, is I don't know if you noticed it or not. They dovetail nicely, but it's they're the opposite view. So the 4 stages I gave are from the perspective of the person going through the transformation. The 3 that you gave are from the perspective of the person that views the transformation. And actually, they work quite nicely together because you have to be prepared for both. So the separation stage 1, in the way I talked about earlier, was leaving the familiar. But to do that, you then have to be prepared for the ridicule. That's why I say that requires commitment. Most people give up the minute ridicule starts. they'll go, oh, you'll never run a marathon. You're too.
Yeah.
So they give up. They give up. They take that ridicule and they go, you know what, it's not for me, or you'll never stick to it, whatever. Then there's the initiation, which is our perspective, and that is where that we have to take courage. You have to go, you know what, no, I am committed. I'm going to do that marathon. And I'm told you I'm going to do it. And you can ridicule me all you like, right? I'm going to do it anyway. And eventually, as you say, that the friends around you, if they are friends or family, they start to get to that realization, the reality phase. They suddenly realize actually that person's really committed to that. And and then that's when they actually appreciate the courage it takes. Like they're really committed, and I wish I was. They start asking questions of themselves. I wish I was more committed. They're showing great courage. I never thought they would do it, but you know what? They've done a 20-mile run. They've done this, and I think they're going to do that marathon. And when they do that marathon, at the end of it, you see the pictures or whatever. I'm giving it a marathon as an example. You then see all the praise coming on the back because that reality has been proven, and that's when the transformation comes because they'll turn around and go, "Well, you could have done it. You ridiculed me here." That's where you realize that you've changed because now you've got a passion for running you never knew you had in this example potentially, or maybe you'll never want to do a marathon again. But you realize everyone else around you hasn't got off the sofa and haven't done anything about it, and then you think, actually, am I still the same person? Because I want to stay on this transformation journey. I want to stay fit and healthy. This has done great things for me. Do I want to go back then? Because the easy option is always the route of water, is to go back to what you did before, go back on the sofa. I've done my marathon, I've ticked it off the box. I'm going back to my default. But actually, a lot of people don't. And then you're sometimes then your friends and communities change. You join, I'm going to go as like a story, as a journey. You go into a run club, you make new friends, you make new colleagues, your social connections change. And sometimes for some people, you may end up leaving the friends you had then behind potentially because you're just into different things. And that's when the transmission phase comes in. You start going, you know what, if you want to run a marathon, Harry, let me train you. I'll show you what I did. I'll give you my training plan. You can come on the journey with me and you start to master your plan. But I loved yours because yours doesn't contradict anything that I was talking about earlier. It just gave all of the same responses, and you're absolutely right, but from the other perspective. And it's really important people are prepared for that. Because whether it's gluten or whether it's a marathon or whether it's going into mindfulness, one of the big things out there that people don't do because they get ridiculed is meditation. Yet thousands have been going for thousands of years. And yet if you tell some people that you meditate, they think you're bonkers, or they think, instantly they'll tell you all the reasons it doesn't work.
Very successful people have been doing it for decades, right? I remember, I think Jerry Seinfeld, he's been doing it for like 30 years. All these people, like CEOs, they used to be more in the closet with it. But what I was going to say, when you were talking about the friends and things like that, is when you do go on these transformations, it is challenging because you want to bring your friends along with you because you love them, you care for them. But at some point, obviously they're going to maybe resist if they're not ready for it, or it's not their path to journey on at the moment. And then when you keep hanging out with those sort of people that maybe, let's say, use the marathon example, right? Let's say you are trying to get fit, you are trying to do this thing. So you're not going to the pub, but then all your friends are pub drinkers and beer and want to party till 3 a.m. Eventually, you're going to possibly, if you're not strong, will compromise your own standards, and then you will actually regress back because you don't want to lose them as friends. You don't want to make them feel bad, because sometimes if you're like all positive and everything around them and they're like, oh, why are you so positive? Why are you all this happy? Then you end up changing. And I've noticed that both in terms of 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when I actually started drifting away from a lot of my childhood friends because we were on different paths and I just wasn't getting that what I needed from them. And then I came a little bit more circular round, and I sort of thought to myself, well, you know what? It's not right for me to expect this of them, right? They are my friends for other reasons. And if I want to have a deeper, meaningful conversation about X, Y, Z, I'll go to this person. If I want to have a conversation about football in the Olympics or whatever, then I'll have that conversation with them. And it's not right for me to put that expectation on them to live up to what I think they should be as a friend, right? They're just who they are, and I either accept that or I don't. But you do have to be a little bit careful, or at least I had to be a little bit careful about how much time I'm spending around those people, because those people will influence me, and I will start to be in a different way.
There's a simpler process that I would recommend. People may be controversial, but look, two of my closest friends, they don't. Well, to be fair, one of them does do a little bit of running now and again, but they're into exactly that. They collect beers. They have apps that log every different beer of the world they've tried. They like all the, and I was the two of my closest friends, I was definitely just like that when I was at uni with them, and they're still my closest friends now. But they're very accepting of what I do. They'll ridicule me now and again as a bit of banter, but ultimately, it'll be something like we're going to the pub at, in the morning. We'll be sleeping off when Nick's running a marathon, and it's that kind of ridicule. It's banter. It's fine. But what I'll say is the metric that I would recommend if you are going on a transformational journey is the people around you. Do they energize you or do they drain you? And the drainers are the people you need to not have and cut them. And if sometimes that's really hard. But if those people no longer give you any kind of energy, and you have that feeling of, oh my God, I just don't want to see that person. I'm dreading it for whatever reason. That they're the signs they tell you in your gut. You know in your gut if something is draining you or something's going to give you energy. I still get, and I don't care if I'm 43, 42, 43 years old, nearly 43. I don't mind that saying that I get excited when I get to see my closest friends, even though we're not necessarily into the same things. They give me energy. I look forward to seeing them. I look forward to finding out what they've been up to, their families, and all the different things and how they see the world. We don't always agree. That's part of the fun. And you and I don't always agree. But when I meet with you, we have a good time. We give each other energy. We go and do workouts. We'll have a good chat. We'll go to a restaurant and speak for 5 hours. You can't do that as well with someone that drains your energy from you. And there will be people when you go through a transformation that you discover later because they're not on that path and they don't want to be on that path with you. And even if from a supportive capacity, they'd rather ridicule it, to use your word. They become draining on you. And I think for me, that's the signal to say, maybe my life's moved on. I don't need to make that.
It's interesting you say the word drain as well, because I don't know if I've given you one of my little beat model cards. I'm not sure, with the questions on the back. But there are 5 questions. I've got tons of them. I'll give them to you next time. But there are 5 questions for each of the areas, right? B, E, A, and T. And in the A part, which is the activity part, which encompasses things like connection, question number 4 or question number 5 is, am I spending time with energy angels or energy vampires today, right? So the vampires are draining your energy, the angels are giving you that energy. And this is what I think about all the time. And it's not that, sometimes it's family, right? Who are the vampires, and
sure,
you have to protect yourself with that, and you can't not spend time with them in some ways, but you can always limit how that's done and in the way that's done, and also get yourself in the best possible position to be in that environment when you know that you're going to have to, like, whether it's Christmas time with extended family, you don't really want to be around, whatever. And so for me, it's really important how I frame my day, even like recently, and this isn't about energy vampires or angels, but obviously I've got my mum staying with me, right? Or she's now moved in, and she's going to live there and I'm going to move out. But at the moment, she's really busy with trying to do stuff, right? Clear the boxes, phone the redirecting people, right? And as soon as I wake up in the morning, I'm coming down and she wants to go straight into that sort of stuff. And I'm like, and I've trained her now. I go, I don't want any conversation about anything until we do our stuff, right? And so we'll sit down and we'll either do a meditation together or Wim Hof. I'll have her in front of the red light box if it's cloudy, or we'll be outside in the sun if it's sunny. Then we'll do like a 5-minute mobility. I think maybe I showed you that 5-minute mobility when you came round. Or we'll do some rebounding, or the other day we did some resistance bands. And then I'll make the juice and the smoothie. And once I've done the juice and the smoothie and we can sit down, have that juice, then I'm like, now I can do it. I can't do it straight first thing in the morning. My brain is not in that mindset to talk about accounts or talk about, auctioning off things. And you want to get the best out of me, I need to set my day up correctly, right? And so otherwise it's too much of a drain. So that's what I'm saying. But before you go into those spaces with people who are maybe draining you, build yourself up, build your emotional bank account up so that you can, because if for example, if we meet, you're depositing, say, £20 into my account. But if I meet someone else, they're taking £20. So rather than go into that conversation with only £10 in my bank account, I'm going to build my emotional bank account up to £50, £100. So when they do take that £20 out from me, I'm still okay. But if I go in with only £10 and they take £20 out of me, I'm going to be in minus when I come out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a saying that says if you go in, if you're the most energetic person in the room, you might be in the wrong room, right? So
I haven't heard that with energy, but I've heard that with intellect. But yeah,
well, it's probably been used in different contexts. But the idea being that you're in there, they all feed off your energy. You come out feeling absolutely exhausted. Everyone else comes out feeling great. right? So
Mm.
you be mindful when you're walking into those situations. So when I work with clients in a coaching capacity, not always, depends on the situation, of course, but I'll often give them an energy audit to do. And then so I can put it on the show notes. It's a free PDF. You can download and
Yeah,
do it for yourself.
you're giving it to me as well.
I'm giving it to you. So the idea of the energy audit is it's not just about people, it's places. There are some places that people don't want to go to. There's places I don't want to go to. I don't want to go. Like, I'm sorry to people that live in Hemel Hempstead, right? But if I go to Hemel Hempstead, I always seem to feel a little bit low. It takes my energy. If I can avoid going there, I won't. I'd rather go somewhere else. Apologies for my listeners in Hemel Hempstead. There are reasons
Yeah,
for that I won't go into, right? But there are certain places that drain us of energy. Maybe something's
yeah.
happened. Avoid those places. There'll be other places that we love. I love going to Dartmoor. I love being on Haytor. It's where my parents, my
Mm.
grandparents were. Gives me huge energy. And whether it's the outdoors, it's probably part of all of that, but it gives me energy. But there's projects. I say this, and I'm doing executive coaching with someone, and they'll have this project, and it's taking all the energy out of them. I say, you know what? What de-energizes you might energize someone else in your team. Because you hate it, you assume that everyone else does too. I guarantee if you put it out there and said, would anyone else like to help me or take this project over from me? There'll be someone, because I hate data analytics or whatever it is you're doing. There'll be someone that goes, oh, I love data. I'll do it. For them, it energizes them, but it de-energizes
Yeah.
you. Like, delegate the stuff that's taking your energy away. Because imagine yourself being like a battery, right? And every time you do it, you need to top it back up now. You need to recharge it. And it's
Absolutely.
places, it's projects, it's people, it's all of
This is
these
it.
things.
This is why
Do
I'm
an
down in
audit.
Brighton, right? Because coming down to Brighton and Hove energizes me, right? The sea, right? Just even in the winter when it's miserable, like just walking along the sea just gives you that energy. And there is a lot of that negative ions that you get off moving water that will give you energy as well. Whereas if I'm in certain places, I won't name them because there was one I was in not too far from London, north of London. I'm not going to name exactly where it is, but it's a bit of a hole. And I was there, and it's like it doesn't feel good. It does not feel good to be in this environment. And so I'm
Feeling in
like,
your gut.
I need,
Yeah.
yeah, and I am trying to go for more of an intuition based approach to things now, and just feel and trust the body, because I think the thing is the body and the mind, they do have a brain, right? You've got the gut brain, you've got the heart brain, you've got the
Yeah.
brain, but the gut brain acts quicker than the head brain, and that's why we tend to get a gut feeling before we kind of rationalize it later. And a lot of the time we ignore that gut feeling and we let the thinking brain kick in and make the decisions, when actually if we trust and we tune our intuition a little bit, we can actually become a little bit more attuned to that and make decisions that are right for us. It
I don't know if
reminds me, I
you
was at dinner
go on. Go on.
I was saying I was at dinner the other day, and often I think that Star Wars is almost like a historical documentary where it's talking about the Force and energy and feeling and all that. Anyway, I was at dinner with my mate and his two boys, and I feel really bad. And if he ever listens to this, I really apologise, and I blame his dad for this. And I said, because they kind of see me as a bit of a hero. Like for years, they literally thought I was Superman. He would tell them that I was actually Superman and Clark Kent, and it was really devastating, probably when they found out I wasn't. Now, I think we were joking. He had one of these etch a sketch type things or whatever, like not like an iPad, but you can only just do drawings on it. And I was saying how I don't know, I would use the Force, right, the Jedi Force, to see if I'm a Jedi, to guess the drawing he would make. So he would draw something, I wouldn't be able to see it, and I think the first thing he drew was like a peacock. He drew three things, like a peacock, a flower, no, a house, and a heart. And all three I got right, but it's only because his dad was mouthing to me kind of what they were. And now he genuinely believes it, and I'm like, I feel so bad now because he thinks that I can read minds and I can see all these things, and I'm a
No, that's just
Jedi. I'm
being a
like,
magician.
it, it,
Nothing wrong with that. That's
it,
fun.
oh, I don't know.
It keeps
I told his
imagination
dad
flowing. Don't worry. That's the worst.
he's gonna
I, I
have to tell him.
teach. I used to have I think our signal's gone a little bit
Oh, sorry.
weird, but I don't know if you know. I used to love doing magic, and I taught
Mm,
my son some magic tricks. And as soon as he does them, I said, you got to say, like, never tell them how it's done, because as soon as they know the simplicity of any trick, it takes all the magic away. So I've taught him this trick is with the glasses, and he's literally got, he loves doing it. We'll go into town, he'll nip into a cafe and literally do the trick for people. And then he just walks out and we watch them, and they're literally the other side of the glass. We can see people trying to work out how he's done it. And I said, that's the magic. The minute you tell them how it's done, it's not fun, it's not interesting
No,
because they
I
just see it's a simple trick. So
know. Oh,
you've done a beautiful thing there. I was going to mention actually the gut thing, as I don't know if you read it, and I don't know if anyone else of our listeners even know that I've done it, but I've got a newsletter that goes out on LinkedIn called Mindset Musings, which links to this show. But it's really for my LinkedIn subscribers. I've got like 27,000 thing of them, so I thought it's a chance for them to find out and hopefully guide them to the show. But the other way around, if you listen to the show and want to see the newsletter, check it out on LinkedIn. But the reason I highlight it is I don't know if you read the last one, Harry, so I usually tag you in, but it was talking about that mind gut connection when I was riding the 70.3
yeah, it was.
Ironman,
I
because
commented.
I got quite
Yeah.
I got quite emotional thinking about my dad on the ride. And I know we're still talking about it, but it's still very much relevant for both of us. And all my energy just disappeared like that. It just went. I felt like I'm never going to finish. I hit the wall. Emotions, that connection took away all of my physical energy. And it wasn't until I was able to kind of change my thought process and get back into the gear that all my physicality kind of came back. And so it's like one de-energized me because I was upset. It took my energy away in that moment because I missed him, and it impacted me in the middle of the race. I felt like I was the end of the race. I wasn't going to finish. But as soon as I was able to change my mindset and think about the things that do energize me, the idea of calling my mum at the end of the race, or how my dad used to come and support me in a different way, gave me the energy back. And I think we need to be in as you say, intuitive, in tune with ourselves, and what energizes us, what de-energizes us. And if we can always stay on a path of energy, whatever that energy is, you're always going to be happier, more productive. And I just think, do that audit.
Mm.
It'll help you. It'll help you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I know we've only done 45, but I know we've both got
We do.
things
And
happening
it's
this
so
evening.
hot in here. Oh.
It is hot. I need to go and take another shower and then prep for the trip I'm taking and the house, because obviously people are going to be staying here from next week for a while. So I need to get all that sorted, and it's always hard when I've got other people around me because I'm like trying to think. But it is, yeah, it's been really nice chatting and kind of catching up a little bit. I think for anyone listening who is going through a transformational period, because sometimes it's as simple as you're listening to a podcast and you're getting new ideas from people, and then you start
100%.
telling your friends about these podcasts, and then they dismiss you or ridicule you, or you feel separate from them. There are going to be people who are your tribe, right? They're going to be people who are up to your vibe, right? Your tribe creates your vibe, or your vibe creates your tribe, as they say. And as you bring a higher energy to your own life, you're going to start attracting the right people and places into your life to help sustain that. It doesn't mean that you have to cut the other people out. It just means that you take an audit of where you want to be with those people. Do you need to spend 5 hours with them like every day, or could you spend maybe an hour with them once a week and still maintain that friendship, but then use that time to be around people who are more energy angels as opposed to energy vampires?
It reminds me
So
of
that's what I would say.
the saying that says, your day does not dictate your mood dictates your day. And I say that because there'll be people out there that always blame the day. They're the drainers. It's not that it's
Yeah.
having a bad. No, you got to look at it. Your mood sets everything up in the right way. Try and get into that positive mindset, and it doesn't matter what the day brings. If it's raining, if it's you can find energy and excitement and empowerment in any weather or day conditions. Right? It's just about how we approach it. Doesn't mean bad things don't happen. We need to find the energy. It comes from within.
Exactly.
So, listen, I always love chatting to you, mate. It's energized me today, although so much so that I am sweating badly. Apologies to listeners that are watching this on video. Hopefully, you don't get a sense of that on audio. Share the episode if you can. I think next time we meet will be just before the Ironman event. So I'll let you know how the training's going when we next connect. I'm off to La Gomera to have a nice holiday with my in-laws. I'm going to get some sun rays, chill out from work. So hopefully you'll have a refreshed, energized co-host when I next see you in about next 8 or 9 days.
I'm taking an adventure to Slovakia. I've never been to Slovakia before, so I'm looking forward to checking that place out. Yeah.
Were you not on the cycle tour? We did Slovakia on the cycle tour once.
I don't know. That's what I was trying to think. I know we did Slovenia.
Oh, it might be Slovenia.
I don't think we did.
I'll have to look into it now. I've definitely been to Slovakia.
Yeah, because someone asked me and I was like, you know what? I don't actually know if I've been to Slovakia or not. So I'm like, I don't actually know.
Well, enjoy. Have a great time.
I will.
All right, buddy. Thanks, listeners, and we'll catch up soon.